Hi, I'm Jim Houran in Tacoma, Washington, visiting with a personal friend and a collector I've admired for many, many years. I'm talking about Dr. Alex Schaus, and he's someone that, to introduce, I'm sort of speechless. I don't even know where to begin. He is such a Renaissance man. He's incredibly brilliant, and when you get to know him personally as well as professionally, you see that his life really is a mixture of art and science. So I'm very intrigued to get inside his mind and learn how he applies that to his collecting philosophy. Now, Alex is someone that is well known for his aesthetic eye, his knowledge of minerals, and he is arguably the person that has won more awards regionally and nationally than any other thumbnail collector. So I'm eager to kind of get in, learn from him, and learn his secrets. And I guess it's only fitting, Alex, that we both are psychologists.
Yeah, it is,
and we're on the couch. That makes sense. So Alex, thanks for letting me come into your home and learn from you and see these minerals, which are incredible.
Oh,
in
wow.
fact, your collection was one of the most difficult for me to go through because you have so much fabulous stuff. To try to condense it into a few specimens that represent you as a collector, I can't imagine what you went through to kind of just choose what you did. Someone could say, well, you could retire from collecting, Alex. What haven't you won? What mineral haven't you found? You know, you set the benchmark for your aesthetics and the science knowledge that you have, but you are still like a kid in a candy store when you're showing your specimens. So I'm eager to see and learn from you about why you chose the specimens you have and what they're going to reveal about you.
Okay.
Like a little projective test.
Yeah, let's do that.
Let's take a look at it. Now, Alex, I can appreciate your comments about color blindness because I'm partially colorblind.
Oh, okay.
So I always go towards the form of a crystal,
Right.
just like Ed McDowell.
Right.
But you don't have to be someone that can see colors to be impressed by this. This is just so sweet. Tell me about this piece.
Well, this is an etrangite, and this is a fascinating mineral because I was lecturing in South Africa in August, the summer of 1983, and I was looking for a rock shop, someplace where I could find mineral specimens, and because I was constantly on the university campuses running around the country, and somebody says there's a rock shop in Cape Town. I said, oh great, I'm going to be lecturing down there. So I found the rock shop, and I was in there for about an hour chatting with the people in there. And all of a sudden, this guy walks in there, and he's got beer flats full of these minerals we had never seen before. They had never seen it, and of course, they lived in South Africa. And he had driven all the way down from what's a Channing mine in northern Cape Town. And these were the etrangites, chalconites, sturmanites that we didn't know that's what they were at the time. And we grabbed a few of these minerals out of the box, and they were almost lighter than air. We go, what the heck are these? They had such amazing colors, though. So it was, I think, some work done at the Smithsonian, University of Toronto. By the time it got to Tucson, I had a chance to bring one flat that I had a chance to sort of high grade out of these 20 flats this miner brought. And that allowed me to have some trading material, which helped me to acquire some thumbnails at the very time that some of the great Sumeb minerals were coming in there, Julia Sweibel and people like that, you know, Sweibels, I think, Julia and Marion Sweibel. So it was just such an opportune, and of course I let go of them all. And so more recently I had an opportunity to meet somebody from Cape Town, and he brought a etrangite. And when I saw it, I said, I gotta have this because it's triply terminated.
I've never seen anything like this. I mean, out of all the ones that you have seen, so this one stands out because of its form.
Yeah, well, because I'd seen so many of them, I knew that how many triple terminated ones did I ever see, and the answer was 0. So here he had one, and I remember when he decided, okay, you know, we agreed on a price for it, and I think he's told me at least a half a dozen times, I wish I wouldn't have let that go. Oh, that was my favorite. Even his wife said, you sold what? The etrangite? You know? So it's one of those minerals that got away, and I got lucky in this time. But because, again, I like to share the opportunity for people to see it, it was in the Desitel case last year. So people had a chance to see it, and I understand it got quite a few comments.
Okay, this is one that makes my mouth drop.
Yeah, it's the little Spessartine.
Yeah, you're so humble about it. The little Spessartine that makes my mouth drop. Tell me the story behind this, because it is remarkable.
Well, oh my goodness. I was, let's see, I had a lecture at the University of New South Wales in Sydney, Australia in summer of 1980. And that gave me an opportunity while I was there to see Albert Chapman. And if you don't know who Albert Chapman was, his father was a superintendent of the mines at Broken Hill when they found the oxidized zone, and that was the time some of the most stupendous minerals came out of Broken Hill, which every collector in the world from that point on had to have in their collection, and for very good reasons. So here's Albert Chapman now, and when he started not only showing me what was in the display cases, but in the drawers, I mean, it was Broken Hill, Broken Hill, Broken Hill. Of course, he had other Australian minerals as well. I just finally made the decision, I'm going to go out to Broken Hill. I'm going to see what this is about. Now I realize that this is like 650 kilometers from Sydney. You know, it's like all flat land. And so finally get out there. I spent the entire day looking for something. Boy, I must have dug, I don't know how many holes, came up. That got skunked. I mean, there was nothing there. I was just like so disappointed. And I had to get back to Sydney also. So I knew that first thing in the morning I had to drive back. So as I was getting to this car, I noticed on the ground sort of a ball of clay. And I thought, you know, I'm going to have something to show that I was in Broken Hill that looked kind of like all the dirt around here, just to say, see, Albert, I was in Broken Hill, and he'd know right away, in fact, I was there. And what happened was I stuck it in my pocket, and it's a very small town. And I found a little coffee shop there and sat down, had a meal, went to my hotel room, and as I took my pants off, the little ball fell out on the floor, on the carpet. And I said, what am I going to do with this thing? So I put it in some water. Just got a glass, put some water in it, and I kind of forgot about it, went to sleep. Woke up in the morning, and all of a sudden, I just couldn't believe it. I see this Spessartine specimen and all this dirt sitting below it. And, you know, I couldn't wait to just pour, you know, I poured it on the floor, unfortunately, all the water and dirt. And here was this mineral, and I got, oh God, I got to show this to Albert, you know. So I think I drove twice as fast, you know, back to Sydney, and I showed it to him, and he says, where did you find this, you know? And I said, it was just on the ground by the car, told him the whole story. Well, this mineral has been in both the McDowell case and I think about 7 or 8 national AFMS trophy cases and in the Desautels case. So it's been sort of one of my favorite self-collected minerals.
Yes,
you know?
yes.
What a strange way to acquire the specimen, but I've loved it. It's got such a wonderful history behind it. And also, it's also scored so really well as far as a mineral in competition.
All right, Alex, I said my mouth dropped with the Spessartine, and that's true. And then it drops even further because I have a passion for diamonds, and this is a specimen I've admired in your collection for so long, and it is amazing. I can't wait to hear you tell me about this.
This was in Ross Lilly's dealer room at the Inn Suites in Tucson. And I had not arrived there until pretty close to the Tucson show. Of course, the Inn Suites dealers are there usually for about 2 or 3 weeks before the main show. And I walked into his room, and I hadn't seen anything at the show at that point that had interested me. And I saw this diamond, and I said, Ross, I'm going to take it. And he says, do you want to know how much it is? I said, Ross, I want to take it. I'm going to go to work on Monday for sure.
Vacation's over.
I've got to have this. I've got to have this diamond. And he says, well, I'm so glad you got it. I mean, so many people have looked at it. So many people said, I'll be back for it. And it's yours. So we agreed on a price, and what caught my attention is this. If you look at this specimen, it's a diamond, first of all, but what you notice, it's kind of hoppered.
Yes.
And it's hoppering inward toward the center. And I wanted to acquire this mineral to really study it, to try to understand the crystallography, because usually things grow out. They don't grow in. And so what's fascinating about this particular mineral is how did it grow? Why did this occur? And having looked at a lot of diamonds, again, going way back to the diamond collection, That's at the American Museum. I later on got to see many of the diamonds at the Smithsonian, the London Museum, the Sorbonne. I mean, so many places I've been fortunate to travel around the world. I'd never seen a diamond that even resembled this. And as it turns out, it's extremely rare. There are very few that have ever been found. This came from the Arapa mine, and that is the world's largest diamond mine, partially owned, I think, even today, or certainly was at the time, by De Beers. And having also been to places like Brussels, Bangkok, many of the places in India where they work with these, expensive colored stones as well as diamonds, I'd just never seen one like it. So it was just its uniqueness and the fact that it really puzzled me as to how this grew. So we've had drawings made of it, we've had photographs taken of it, and it's a chance to let others be aware of the rarity of this mineral, because there may be more out there. Maybe somebody even has one and doesn't realize its rarity. So it's truly an extraordinary mineral, because on all sides, if you look at that, it's hoppered inward. The slanting is occurring from every single side inward.
It's mesmerizing. You just want to keep looking at it because there's some new angle to it. It's just captivating.
Yeah, glad you enjoy it.
Yes, yes. Now here is a mineral that will be probably unfamiliar to many people. Why did you acquire this?
Well, after the opportunity I had to compete with Jim Manette at one of the Southern California competitions, he had invited me over to his house, and so I thought, oh, what a great opportunity. Obviously, a very accomplished individual, working in Boron, California at the borax mine there. And I was very interested in looking at borates as well, because where else could you see such a range of borates and boron-related minerals? So I went over to his house, and he showed me his collection, and that woodhousite just caught my attention right away. Now, woodhousite is normally a mineral that you'll see only as a micro. And this was actually collected in July 1970, and Jim was on that field collecting trip. And that is the largest of the woodhousites that was found in that location. There was one slightly smaller than that. And I basically said to Jim, if you ever sell your collection, I would want to put my name on that one. And so when, unfortunately, Jim passed away and his wife Dawn put the collection up for sale, I went right straight to Dave Bunk's booth, and there it was. And I mean, I got there, I would have been there at 2 a.m. in the morning just to go after that woodhousite. It's important when you compete at the national, international level, at a Tucson show in particular, that you have some really rare specimens. And this is an example of true rarity. It may not be, a rhodochrosite or an emerald or something of that nature, but for true mineralogists who really appreciate how difficult it is to find certain minerals that you can actually see with your eye, this is one classic example of a mineral that I would say is very high on my list as far as its rarity and appeal.
What sort of resources were most influential to you as you were learning about rarities?
Books. Read all the time. Just read all the time. One of the greatest publications, I think, is the Mineralogical Record. And that record has had a profound effect on me. I read it from cover to cover. I mean, I may have to write a chapter or finish a book or do a research project or prepare for lectures at Oxford or something. And if the Min record appears and Laura, my wife, brings it to me, she knows right away. I drop everything and I start reading cover to cover.
Really?
And I learn from it. I was in Francois Lyotard's room, and again at the Inn Suites at that time, and he hadn't yet transferred over to the Tucson show. And how are you? He's always very, very friendly. And I looked up at the case and I said, "Is that a windchite?" And he was like stunned. He said, "Wow, I can't tell you how many people have asked me, what is it? And you just said it was a windchite." I said, "Yeah, it's a windchite." I had never seen a windchite that size. "Can I have it?" And he says, "It's yours." Like that. So very lucky. And again, to most people, oh, it may be like a poor example of a topaz or something like that.
Right.
But it just, again, the crystallography, it just told you right away, again, clarity, color. And again, reading, studying, having seen windchites, in other collections, I just knew that was a windchite right away. Now, I could have been wrong, but he confirmed it right away, and there was the label. It was like a little high up on the shelf, so you couldn't even see the label at the time. And there it was a windchite.
But it's a special one. The ones
Yeah.
that I've seen pretty much are just blades.
Yes, exactly.
This is something you could cut. Heaven forbid you would.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
you could cut this. It has
Oh,
that,
yeah,
that degree
yeah.
of girth to it.
Exactly, and I was surprised to see this large, because usually that's exactly what would be done with that. Somebody would take that specimen and facet it to have a windchite faceted gem, which in itself would be quite rare. So, wonderful mineral. But again, something very overlooked. I'm sure thousands of people were in his room by the time I was there. Again, I was late on arrival, and there it was, and I said, it's mine.
It's yours.
And I got lucky.
Alex, this Realgar just stunned me. I've not seen anything like this before.
Well, what caught my attention about the Realgar is it's not a mineral you want to display, because oftentimes it goes through this transposition into orpiment. And it's an orange mineral, and it loses its luster generally, and certainly its appeal at that point. But this turned out to be a lucky find, because I've had this displayed many times in my case, and it's very stable. For example, at the say at a 3 or 4 day show, you've got lots of light on this particular specimen, and as you can see, with the exception of maybe a little tiny bit of orpiment appearing at the very crest of that crystal, and I'm not even sure that is orpiment yet, but the gemminess, the luster, the sharpness, the termination, and with that little spoke there on the side, it's just an absolutely beautiful Realgar specimen.
It's exquisite. And I have to ask you, what is it about the color red?
Well, that's interesting. Rhodochrosites are red, and you got Realgar that are red, and there's quite a number of beautiful red minerals. I think we just don't see red very often in nature, so we're very alert to it. Now, from a biological standpoint, our blood is red, and so if we were to bleed, or somebody else was to bleed, that catches our attention immediately, right? We either could be at risk of getting infected, or somebody else could be hurt or be at risk of infection. So I think the brain is very alert to red. I had a bornonite that did really well from France. It actually came from a coal mine. And, on a scale of like 1 to 10, and generally you get at least a 6 if you bring a mineral. So let's not...
Some credit for trying. Let's not kid ourselves.
Let's not get over-impressed here. Okay, the rule in Tucson should be you get a 6.5, even if it's just a piece of dirt.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's a mineral.
It is a mineral, and it has a label.
Yeah. But to get to 7, it's got to have some quality, okay? And it gets a little harder for every little, tenth of a point.
Then you're working for it. You're working
for it, right? So, I had this and it used to get really in the high 9s. And many people said, boy, if there ever was a specimen, I want to get this one out of your case, if you ever offer it. But then one day, I see this bornonite from China, and I just could not believe it. And the luster this has, the sharpness of the faces and the crystal, the complexity of it is just mind-boggling. I mean, I could sit there and study this mineral for an hour without much difficulty. Just look at all the things that are going on with this mineral.
I know. It's dancing.
Absolutely. It glitters.
It's hypnotic.
For a bornonite, for a black mineral,
right,
to have this type of luster, wow.
So here's a specimen you had that was great. Everyone agreed was great. It had high marks in competition, and you beat it. How often does that happen, Alex? You just beat yourself.
Yeah. Not too often. Not too often, because, again, the value of go to the shows, go to as many shows as you can, see as many collections as you can, visit as many collectors as you possibly can, to get a real sense of it, because what oftentimes will happen is there'll be a new discovery and it shows up for the first time, say in Munich or Denver or West Springfield or Tucson or one of the AFMS shows or one of the Canadian shows, and you get a chance to look at the best of the best, and you can pick out the one that is most appealing to you for whatever reason. This particular Bornonite was another one. I mean, I don't usually have too much duplication, but when I saw this, I said, "You've got to be kidding me."
Yeah, this looks like an arrowhead. This looks fake.
Is that just not unreal?
It's unreal. So again, here you just maybe even beat yourself yet again.
Yeah.
You start off with a good one, you have a great one, and now you have another great one.
Right, right. Well, obviously the appeal here is the single crystal that looks like an arrowhead. This is a Bolivian specimen, and it's again a black mineral, but that's just out of this world. So you are allowed in competition when you're doing sort of like a worldwide case to have some duplication. And in this case, you've got an entirely different location and an entirely different crystal habit, and yet you've got really two wonderful world-class minerals there. So just being in the right place at the right time, and also letting people know this is what you're looking for, that really helps a great deal. So when you meet another collector, look at their collection, and there's nothing wrong with saying, "Look, is there any chance that you'd part with that specimen?" And they may say, "Well, Alex, you've got something in your collection I've been wanting for years. Could we do a trade?" And if you're willing to do it and you feel it's a fair trade, there's your opportunity. No cash exchange, just I've got something I've always wanted, which I think balances out my collection, and you got something that you've always wanted that fits in with what your favorite attributes are for what you collect.
Now, cubanites, I've seen many of them. This is one that takes my breath away. This is probably the finest one I've ever seen.
Well, this is this is so funny. I'm wandering around the old Desert Inn. This is probably 25, 30 years ago. And there was a gentleman there from the Montreal area, and he was a beekeeper. And I was very interested in bee and bee pollen from just my research area, antioxidants and polyphenols and things like that. So right away he was real interested in learning a little bit more about what he did, but at a more scientific level. And we chatted for a while, and so what brought you here to Tucson? Well, I've got a room down here, and I've just brought a few Mount St. Hilaire minerals along. Oh, can I see them? So I went down to his room, and I saw this cubanite, and I went, "Oh my goodness, are you kidding me? Full thumb, 25 millimeter all the way around. I mean, is there any chance I could buy this from you?" And we agreed on a price, and it was mine, and it turns out up to now to probably be the killer, we call it killer cubanite, the best there is, and I've never seen a better one.
Alex, when I saw this, I went gulp. Because rutile, I mean, sometimes it gets gemmy, but this is a species that I love. I had one in my collection.
Yeah.
And I have never seen anything like this. Ever.
Well, I had reached a point at one show where I said, I'm not going to spend another dollar. I found 2 or 3 minerals at the show. I was very, very happy. And I already knew I had to go to work on Monday, but I didn't know I might have to go on overtime and maybe cancel my vacation and keep working. When this mineral was shown to me, I mean, it was, I've got to have this. Right away, first of all, there's rutiles in Arkansas, there's rutiles in Georgia, there's rutiles here and there. There's rutiles in many places in the world, and they just never did anything for me, although they're a wonderful specimen for specimen people to have. But when I saw the luster and the appearance of this V-shaped rutile, it just blew my mind. I mean, just look at how those faces reflect the light. It is just absolutely extraordinary.
It has the luster, yes. It has the sculptural quality. And unlike most rutile, it also has some thickness to it.
Yes, right.
It's not the thin slivers you see in quartz or that you see from other types of in Brazil.
Right.
And also, I think I'm seeing the glints of red.
Yeah.
Despite its thickness, you see the color.
Yeah. If you put some really strong light behind it, you will see that color. And you look at the termination at every single face. It's just perfect, damage-free. This is a phenomenal rutile. I mean, that's a cover mineral. No question about it.
I'd buy it. Yeah, I'd buy the magazine. That's a cover girl. That's a cover girl.
Again, interestingly, a very dark mineral, but extraordinarily appealing.
Oh, yeah, gulp.
Wow.
All right, Hemimorphite, a common mineral you see in many collections. Always a pretty mineral. But this one, wow. I mean, wow. It is gorgeous.
Well, this spray is unlike any I've ever seen, and it is just so perfect, so gemmy. The luster on this thing, it just takes my breath away to look at that. I mean, again, that's the cover.
That's the cover.
That's the cover shot right there. It is just extraordinary, and it's just as beautiful on the back side as the front side. Again, why this is so wonderful to be able to see the entire specimen from every angle is just unreal.
As you see the light dance across this, you just can clearly see the texture of the specimen.
Right.
It makes you want to reach it and touch it.
Right.
The tactile quality.
Right.
It's phenomenal. How much does that come into play? I mean, how much do you handle your minerals and experience it that way, not just the visual?
Well, I think it's real important to study and learn a lot about any mineral. For example, if this was a pyrite, I wouldn't touch it.
And why is that?
Well, you don't want any moisture on there. Well, it can form sulfuric acid. And you start to lose some of the luster very quickly. So before you mess around with a mineral, know something about it. Learn its chemistry and read as much as possible about it, because, for example, if this was a Hanksite, okay, from Cedar Lake, California, I wouldn't recommend where I live here in Tacoma to leave it, standing as a display, because what you'll start seeing, a kind of a powdery mildew start to appear. It'll just fall apart for you. And that's just because it's an anhydrous mineral, and it starts to work with the moisture and fall apart, basically. So do understand your minerals. I mean, there's no question that's important. But I tend not to want to touch these too much, and when I do, I'm very, very careful, just in case there could be something that my hand could do to dampen the quality of the specimen.
That's a good point. But still, it looks irresistible.
Yeah, it's just absolutely gorgeous.
You showed me a Datalite earlier that I thought was really good. It was small and it was gemmy, and I don't see well-formed gemmy Datalites that often.
That's very true. Very difficult mineral to find, especially a good quality one that's got that water clear appearance. And it always has a central pipe, I call it, from which it grows. And you actually saw that when you looked at that mineral. Now, that particular mineral you looked at was originally collected by Clifford Frundell, Dr. Frundell, at the Harvard Museum. And this was the one that came from Delnogorsk.
Oh.
And this is the specimen where it just completely beats the Harvard Museum specimen because of its thickness, its size, its clarity. It's just unreal. A wonderful Datalite.
And here's a good example of a colorless mineral. Some people would overlook that, but the rarity factor here is off the charts.
Yeah, off the charts, indeed. And I've seen several Delnogorsk Datalites, but nothing quite like this, especially for a thumbnail.
Yeah, I look at this, Alex, and it's just cute. It's just the cutest little thing.
What I think is so special about calcites is, again, the amazing number of forms that they take. This one in particular, this V-shaped group of balls, it's just astounding. This is a Bulgarian. It's got like this belangerite inside of the calcite to give it that dark color. But when I saw this, I just had to have it. I mean, because this is an example of where there were 4 or 5 of these similar with different configurations, but this one's the only one that formed a V. And I thought, just from an aesthetic standpoint, what a lovely specimen. So it joined my calcite collection.
Oh, this looks organic. It's one of those things that looks like it's alive.
Yeah.
Or it could be some sort of a life form.
Yeah, exactly.
It's just super cute and complete all the way around.
Right. And notice each ball is almost exactly. I actually measured it.
Of course you did, Alex. Of course, that's what you do. You're a scientist.
Every one of these balls are exactly the same size. So you've got 5 balls that are exactly the same size that form a V. And and there's no damage to them at all. And the contact point is at the very bottom of the base of the V where it grew. And I ask myself every time, how did this grow? I mean, how is this possible?
No, it's exquisite. And it's the kind of mineral that it can look good next to a piece that maybe you paid even more money for.
Yeah, right, exactly. I've had this in some of my AFMS trophy cases for calcites. And Laura loves me to always show the calcites because everybody enjoys the variety. So when I put 25 different calcites together, that would be one that I'd like to put in there for simply showing the diversity of the forms that are available. You know, normally the Ferberites, when you find them around from Saxony, they're rarely ever any twins. And the few twins I've seen are really, really tiny. And then along came this one from Bolivia. And when I saw it, it was just, I just had to have it right away. I think the dealer said, well, that didn't take even 5 seconds. I said, well, I would be surprised if it took more than 2 seconds. How often would you ever see something like this? So I was delighted to get this in the collection. And this came from Mike Bergman. And he knew when he had seen this that Alex would like this.
Full thumbnail.
Full thumbnail.
Thick crystals.
Thick crystal of this nature. And I didn't hesitate for one split second. Once I verified it was what he had said, because I was just astounded at the size of this. It really hit that full, right up to 2.5 centimeters, that 25 millimeter limit that you have to have with thumbnails. And it's a real treasure to have that. So I'm glad that whoever found this, the miner, treated this with such tremendous care, because it's not damaged and it's just a lovely dark specimen. Again, going back to that McDowell influence and
clearly,
and
yes,
the importance of crystallography that was taught to me by Fred Poe.
When I saw this, I thought this was Russian, but this is a rare American specimen. I'm looking at something very important, aren't I?
Yes, yes. Quite a number of decades ago, there was a quarry in Penfield, New York, where these water-clear, stunning fluorites came out. And this was an example of where there were a lot of these available at one time, and those who were lucky and wise enough to acquire them did, and then they disappeared. They absolutely disappeared. And I have been looking for a good Penfield fluorite for decades, and Laura collects fluorites, and I had always talked to her about finding a thumbnail Penfield, and Keith Williams had this in an old collection that he acquired, and it was took me 1 second to say, oh, finally,
you got it.
Finally got a Penfield, and it's a thumbnail, and it's great, and there it is, and it doesn't get any better than this. And again, it's comparative to some of the wonderful fluorites out of Delnogorsk. But the very fact this is a Penfield is just a treasure to finally acquire.
It looks fake.
It does, doesn't it?
It looks fake.
It does. It looks like
something you created in your lab. Not that you'd ever do that.
No, but maybe like a glass blower would make.
Like a glass blower, like your son would make. No, this is just mesmerizing. You could just look at this all day.
Yeah. It's good.
Why don't you give it to me to look at all day?
Oh, sure.
Okay, great. I'll just take it back with me. Adopt it for a day.
You know what you should do? Take it around the airplane when you're flying home and just show it to everybody. And maybe all these people will join us and start collecting minerals as well.
Yeah, I don't think you'd let me do that, but yes.
Hey, do you have one of these?
Do you have one of these? No, you don't. But you can see it on this video.
Yeah, exactly.
So this one is another beautiful calcite, 360 piece. It looks like a crystal ball in a way.
I was so amazed when I opened up a Perky box and saw this. It hadn't been displayed yet. It was one of those things that was in a box, in one of those beer boxes, and I don't know why the dealer didn't put it out. He had a whole bunch of other minerals in there, and I said, do you have anything else that's small? And would you happen to have any calcites? He said, yeah, I got a little box over here. You might find something in there. And he still had them in the box, and I opened this one up. I thought, oh my word, look at this thing. Unreal for a calcite. I mean, it's got almost like a diamond appearance.
Exactly.
Right? The spark is unreal. And I think it illustrates everything from the V-shaped 5 balls of calcites we looked at earlier to the luster and brilliance, the water clarity that you can still get with a calcite that can be extraordinarily attractive. It's a very appealing species, calcite, these carbonates, for collectors to get started with. And again, this is an area that is really quite inexpensive. You just have to have the patience, though, to keep looking. Go to in every single dealer's room, in every collection, you're going to find some calcites. And eventually you're going to find something that really appeals to you. It would be difficult to go to a show and not find 2 or 3 really nice calcites. But the trouble is, most of them have disappeared. And the reason is that many of the localities where these came from, these are mines that are closed. And we may never see any of these again. So for me, anytime I see a great calcite, acquire it. It's not going to break the bank. And that's one of the wonderful things about collecting calcites.
So this is another really cute example of calcite from your sub-collection.
Yes.
Now, why this one? Why you chose to show this one?
Well, I was trying to put together, and everybody says, well, good luck, it'll take you your whole lifetime, and I think they weren't too far off. I wanted to put together a case of calcite twins. And, but because you've got Egremont, for example, as a calcite twin, how do you beat an Egremont calcite twin? Well, after 40 years, it's possible to find them, and I finally was able to put an entire collection of twins together, which won a AFMS national trophy. And this was one of my favorite specimens. I mean, this is just perfect in so many ways. And it's Japanese. Which,
it's Japanese.
You just don't see so often. There were some beautiful Japanese twins written about them before World War II. And of course, with the war, I think a lot of them were destroyed. And we're really fortunate that one of these still lingered somewhere, and we found it, and there it is. And this has been in my collection for, I'd say, close to 15 years. And I love people enjoying this specimen. And it's also been fun. It happened several times when I've shown this at competitions where people from Japan see this. And they have seen, of course, because they're there at the show, they're obviously into minerals. And they eventually, somebody finds me, and I've talked to them, and is there any way we can get this one back to Japan? So
it's not going anywhere, is it?
Yeah, not for a while. It's a beauty.
Passport marked
beauty.
U.S.
It's an absolute beauty.
This is a really pretty calcite, and the thing that grabs you immediately are those striations.
Yeah, the striations, the thickness of this twin, and the water clarity that comes with this. It just, this is dazzling. And when you see this spinning around and the light hits it, it's not only reflecting off the surface, but from the interior. I don't know quite how to describe that, but you'll notice that as you look at this mineral, especially when it's in a display case. And again, it was one of those things that, every few years I found a really good calcite twin to try to build this calcite twin specialized collection. And this one, of course, was also in the AFMS National Trophy case. And I think it's just an absolutely terrific find.
This calcite looks like reverse scepter quartz of some sort. It's really pretty and so much unlike, again, what we just saw with the calcites.
Yeah, exactly. Once again, showing and illustrating the remarkable diversity of the form, shape, color, location that you can get if you get into specializing in one particular species or in one chemical classification. So somebody might enjoy calcites, and then they're in the carbonate category. They could be in silicates. They could be in oxides. So there's so many options when it comes to thumbnail collecting, and I think that's one of the wonderful things. And here you're seeing a really great, different type of calcite, wonderful locality, and again, damage-free, totally different than any of the other calcites I've ever found. So one of these comes along, you recognize there's something unique about it, grab it.
Yeah, that's a no-brainer, wasn't it?
That was a no-brainer.
Alex, thanks to you and your wife Laura for inviting me into your home, showing me the collection. I could spend a year here and still not appreciate all the nuances of your collection.
Thank you.
And this was a real thrill. And I can see why he's such a Renaissance man. You really get a sense of the art and the science with Dr. Schaus. But he is more than just this collection. He is someone that shares it with everybody else. He's about education, bringing new people into the hobby. And he's just so generous with his time and his knowledge. He really is an inspiration. And that really wants to, it motivates me. It motivates me to get back on the road, to go see the next collector and see what we can learn. Because it's going to be hard to top Alex. He is a benchmark. He is another icon in the field of collecting. And that's what makes it so much fun, meeting these types of people that usually you only get to read about and learn from. So thank you so much. Again, thank you, Alex, and I'll see you next time on the road. Hi, I'm Jim Houran, and it is my distinct pleasure to be meeting today with Tom Moore. Everyone knows as the editor of Mineralogical Record. What I like about Tom is he's a prolific writer, he's a keen editor. My impression about him is he's a very precise person, so I'm very eager to see his collecting philosophy and the types of specimens he chooses. So Tom, thank you for letting me come into your home and share with me your specimens and let me pick your brain.
No trouble at all. Picking the brain might be some trouble, but go ahead. Give it your best shot.
So we're going to talk today about your minerals, your philosophy, why you choose a particular piece, and hopefully you'll give us some guidance to make us all better collectors.
All right.
So Tom, tell me about this piece.
This is the Michigan Calcite copper. It's always been one of my sentimental favorites. I've had it a long, long time. I went to undergraduate school at the University of Delaware in the mid-60s, and I was lucky enough to be there when the school got the Irénée DuPont collection, formerly owned by one of the scions of the DuPont family of Delaware. And I was one of the first to unpack it when it arrived, the collection that is, with my professor and mentor, Peter Levens. And Peter was the first to teach me what I now know, begin to teach me what I now know about specimen mineralogy. I learned a great deal from him. I've always been grateful to him. But already I liked thumbnails. And of course, I had my greedy little eye on some thumbnails in the DuPont collection. Didn't have a lot of thumbnails, but it had a few. That was one of them. And I would help Peter add to the collection, traveling to local shows around southeastern Pennsylvania. And I'd get him things with my own very limited funds and say, hey, trade me that for that. And sometimes he was fool enough to agree, as when he released that one to me. It's still, I think, the best specimen of that material of that size I've ever seen. The copper is bright, protected from tarnish, of course, in the calcite. The calcite itself is completely colorless and transparent. The crystals sit up well, they display well, nice reflections. And it's only a calcite, but it's my baby.
Now, pyrite. Here's a mineral that many collectors, just starting out, will buy. Readily available. So what was it about this particular piece that caught your eye?
Well, this is an example, I guess, of my fascination with old classic localities, especially in southeastern Pennsylvania, where I'm from originally, and in Connecticut, where I lived for 12 years, and in Germany, where I lived for 14 years. Now, pyrite, of course, is very common, and you can get for very little money the beautiful, sharp, simple cubes from Spain, the big, flashy ones from Peru, and a million other localities one could think of. But this one is from the now long-defunct iron mine at French Creek in Chester County, Pennsylvania. It came from an old Philadelphia collection, and it's probably mid-19th century vintage. They weren't found that good much after that time, although the mine itself lasted till, I think, about 1920. It also reminds me of when I used to go dig on the dumps. There was fee collecting there at French Creek for a long time. I could lie and say I found that on the dumps, but of course, everybody would know that would be a lie. French Creek pyrites are very distinctive, and they're very rare. Partly because there were never that many so good to begin with, but also because, like some pyrites from other places, they tend to be unstable and they crumble. and they turn to sulfuric acid, which eats the wood out from under them in the shelves and so on. But that one has been, I mean, it's 150 years old probably, and it's held up very nicely. And again, it's the best small French Creek pyrite I've seen. It's probably more valuable, both intrinsically and to me, than all the rest of my 30 or 40 pyrite specimens put together. Partly sentimental associations, but also because I like classic localities.
Tell me about this piece.
Well, this one has a very short history with me because I just got it 2 years ago at the famous American Mineral Treasures Tucson show, when the Minette collection came up for sale with Dan Weinrich and Dave Bunk. But when the Minette collection came up for sale, there were many things in there, and still are, that I would, as I got to quote Rock Courier's famous line, I would run over my grandmother for. But that was the only one that was within my price range at the time, 2 years ago, and just barely was. It's a closed Gwindel. I don't know how much to get into this. I wrote a big article on quartz Gwindels from the Alps. But the closed Gwindels, defined as the ones with the straight edges, as opposed to the serrated edges, are much, much rarer than the open Gwindels, which are the ones with the serrated edges. And that one has not only the virtue of being closed, but also unusually lustrous for a Gwindel, completely transparent, gemmy. In the front, you see the little triangular face. That's the X face characteristic of Gwindels, and there's a mirror image one on the back, and the thing is so transparent that you can see them both at once. So it's a good aesthetic effect. It's not the most beautiful thing in the world, but Clintonite is a very, very rare, in good crystals that is, rare member of the chlorite group. It's deep green and lustrous at its best, and as far as I know, there are only two really good localities for it. One is Crestmore, California, but those look very different than these, which I think are superior to them, from Prince of Wales Island, Alaska, the famous epidote locality. Green Monster Mountain on Prince of Wales Island, Alaska. And my friend Doug Toland, whom I knew way back in Delaware days, got his first trip up there with the Smithsonian expedition of 1967, I think it was. It was very close between Doug and me, who would go on that just to be a rock toter, you know, for the real mineralogists. And I finally relinquished it to Doug because I found a paying summer job instead. But it turned out to change his life because he is, to this day, he and his partner Tom Hanna are co-leasers of that locality, and they're responsible for all the epidotes and other things that you see from Prince of Wales on the market now. He found these really good Clintonites only once on that very first trip in the late 60s. And he brought that one back and a few others, and he gave me my choice. It was a gift. He said, take the one you like, and of course, I lasered in on that one because it was the best one. Oh, the phosgenite. Now it's time for some history again. The personal history of that one is that I traded it a long time ago when I was still in undergraduate school with a North Carolina collector named Louis Schrum. I think he's dead now, probably is, because that was a long time ago. He had a very small, exclusive collection of thumbnails, which I think he mostly acquired through trade because he was one of the original diggers of rutile and hiddenite and emerald and those North Carolina things. And he had that phosgenite from Montepone, Sardinia. And I don't even remember what I gave him for it, but I'm glad I did, whatever it was. That's about the best phosgenite you can have from that very old classic locality. Is lead mines in southwestern Sardinia, which go back to ancient days. There are traces of Phoenician mining there, you know, like 1000 BC. It's surely the world's best locality for phosgenite, rare lead chlorocarbonate. Yeah, English green fluorite. Well, this is pretty familiar to most collectors with even a little experience. Fluorite, another super common mineral with hundreds and hundreds of localities, but in my personal opinion, the old English ones are still the best. And some of them aren't even so old. As you know, Cal Graber and his crew go to the Frosterley mine. No, the Roger Lee mine at Frosterley in Weardale every year, and they bring out great quantities. But that is not from there. That's from an older and rarer locality, the Blue Circle Quarry in Weardale, not far from the Roger Lee. There's a whole bunch of them together, as you'll see in our new supplement on the Green Bank collection. That one's just an exceptionally fine penetration twin fluorite with color zoning. There are purple zones in it, just faintly sort of smoky purple, and then most of the rest is green. But it's quite transparent and undamaged, and it's the penetration cube twin. I got it actually from a French dealer, but it's classic English fluorite. Can't think of more to say about it than that.
Yeah, well said. It's just simple geometry that makes it so attractive too. It's just
And the color.
the color.
Yeah, another connection to my misspent youth. Although again, like the French Creek pyrite, I wish I could say I collected this personally, but I didn't. It's very, very old. In the 19th century, the Wheatley mine, the Wheatley lead mine in Phoenixville, Pennsylvania, was, with Bad Ems, Germany, one of the two great localities in the world for pyromorphite. Now, of course, it's China and France and Spain, some other places produce fine pyromorphites. But the Wheatley mine, Pennsylvania ones at their best are antiques. They're relics of the past. That too came from an old collection. Some of the pyromorphites are deeper green than that. That has a nice bright luster and a nice grass green color, I'd call it, with a tinge of yellow. It's well composed. There's no matrix, but when you do see matrix pieces of that, they'll be on rusty brown, gossaty matrix, kind of like the Ohuela mine matrix. The Wheatley mine produced also world-class Anglicite and Cerussite and even some half-decent Wolfenite. I mean, Western collectors know all about Wolfenites from everywhere, but might not realize that good ones came from Pennsylvania and also from Massachusetts in the 19th century. But that's just a very fine Wheatley mine pyromorphite. I have dug on the dumps there, but there's nothing to be found anymore. It hasn't been for probably 50 years. Yeah, another old classic is Chalcocite from Bristol, Connecticut. One of the first assignments I had when I came out to Tucson to take this job was to help Bob Jones with his article on the Bristol Chalcocite locality. And I did quite a bit of editing and learned a lot in the process. Bristol is not far from Hartford, and there's practically nothing left anymore of the old mines. But again, it's a case as the finest chalcocites today come from, Wisconsin and Kazakhstan and Australia and places like that. The best ones in the 19th century came from Connecticut, of all places. These were mined, I learned from that article, mostly in the 1850s and 60s, the best ones, that is. That one is small. They do get bigger than that, but it has nice lines, I think. Has good luster, good form. Sometimes the Bristol chalcocites, like the Cornwall, England ones, turn sooty black on the surface, and they get kind of ugly and cruddy. But other times they don't. They hold up. And that one, for some reason, has held up. It's still in good shape, although it too is probably at least 150 years old. Yeah, this is another part of my history here. This will be familiar to anybody who's been around the scene for a while. This is a rhodochrosite from the Sweet Home Mine, Alma, Colorado. That locality really goes back to the 19th century, but it had a tremendous spurt of development in the 1990s when Brian Lees of Collector's Edge got together a bunch of investors and did an all-out, thorough professional mining effort looking only for mineral specimens, not for ore. And it was never much of an ore mine, but of course the rhodochrosites from there are arguably the finest in the world. And I helped write the mineralogical special issue on the Sweet Home Mine. I had the longest section of it called New Developments or something like that at Sweet Home Mine. I made 2 trips to Colorado, got in the mine with the miners and watched them blast. I was up there in the stopes with the miners, and I didn't have much time on either trip. And of course, my fantasy was that while I was standing there, they'd break into one of these fabulous pockets. But while I was there, they didn't. But I later found out that's from the zone they call the corner pocket. That was what the next blast first revealed, the couple days after I left. So that thing was maybe a couple of feet above my head as I stood in the drift all that time. It was right up there, but I missed it by a few days. But I guess I did a good enough job. Brian was grateful enough. He gave me that one as a reward for my efforts. And the specimen's aesthetic merits, I think, are pretty obvious. There's a big gemmy rhomb in the middle, fringed by quartz crystals, and a little black metallic tetrahedrite on the front. So aesthetically, it's very nice. And there's no damage, of course, and it's one of the nicest gifts I've ever been given by anyone. Ah, yes, the gold from Alaska. Gold needs no introduction, I suppose. Although it sometimes surprised me showing the collection to people who know nothing about minerals, it surprised me how surprised they are to find that gold, as well as other metals, can form crystals, can be minerals, just like quartz and calcite. And this makes a good example to show such people because it's obviously a big crystal. It's a hoppered octahedron, and you can even see the hop ring on one of the octahedron faces there, the 111 face. The rest of it is less clear, but it's clearly a big, slightly, but not too much, water-worn crystal. It didn't travel downstream very far from where it first withered out of the quartz vein. The locality is said to be Alaska. It came from the John Barlow collection, and his label just said Alaska. I know he was in Alaska procuring gold, which was one of his specialties. So I have no particular reason to doubt the locality. I wish it could be more precise, but then they seldom are, especially for alluvial things like that have washed God knows how many miles downstream from wherever they came from, and Alaska's pretty wild anyway. I bought that from Collector's Edge just after they had acquired the John Barlow collection. That's another example of lucky timing. I'd come into a little inheritance money, and I said, by God, I'm going to get a serious gold with some of this. Of course, there were much more practical uses for most of it, but I decided to get myself a serious gold. And then they got the Barlow collection with all its many golds, and I named my top price, and they sent me a few to choose from. And that was the one I chose, and I think it was a bargain. It's worth more than I paid for it, that's for sure. It's probably the most valuable specimen in my collection. This is a pseudomorph of cassiterite after orthoclase feldspar from the only place in the world that they ever got that good, an ancient mine in Cornwall, England. Whale coats, it's called. Whale's an old Celtic word for mine, W-H-E-A-L. So English specimens, you see whale sometimes, that's what it means mine, near the village of St. Agnes in Cornwall. That's an unusually sharp one. If you know the form of a typical, let's see, which kind of twin is it now? I'm going to show my ignorance. A Baveno twin, I believe, of feldspar, which is white, milky white to pale pink to tan. You see a lot of those from a lot of places, and that is the form of a Baveno twin. But in the tin mine at Whale Coats, most of the early Cornish mines were tin or copper mines, there is this replacement of dark gray granular cassiterite very faithfully after the form of the feldspars. So pseudomorph people go crazy over those because there was only one locality, it's a very old one, and they got very good, even though it's dull gray.
What's the number on the back?
31. You mean, why is there a number on the back? I like to preserve old specimen numbers and labels and tags and little bits of writing when it doesn't interfere with the front view of the specimen, because it's a testament to history. I got that from Herb Aboda. He didn't know who had put that number on the back or when or what it meant. But I want to keep it. I don't want to take it off, because what it says is that this is an old specimen that's been around a while, been around the track a few times. And at some point, that number meant something to somebody. Of course, with old ones like that, you prefer old labels, documentation, but often, realistically, you can't have it. So there it is. I preserve the number just because I like to do that.
Love it.
Now, elbaite, for those who don't know, who may watch this, is what the jewelry trade universally calls tourmaline. Mineralogically, tourmaline is not a single mineral. It's a group of related species with identical crystallography but varying chemistry. And it seems more rare new tourmaline species are being discovered all the time. But the king of them is the one called elbaite, named for its type locality on the Italian island of Elba. Now, there are giant spectacular elbaite crystals from Brazil and from Pakistan and Afghanistan, and earlier from Southern California. And everybody knows what they look like, and they're glamorous and beautiful, and they can be 2 feet wide. But this one is from the old Gillette Quarry in Haddam Neck, Connecticut, right along the Connecticut River. We had an article by Jeff Scoville on the locality quite a few years ago. It was sort of like a tourmaline mine around the beginning of the 20th century. They're actually looking for cuttable gemstones in this quarry. They didn't find too many, but the best of the elbaite crystals from the Gillette Quarry are very good. They can be bigger than that. Of course, they don't rival the monsters from Brazil and Afghanistan, but they have a distinctive kind of green color, which you can see there. And often they have pink caps. Sometimes they have yellow zones also. This one is broken and re-healed about 3/4 of the way down. You see it's bent at a slight angle with a little white vein where the quartz came in and healed the fracture. Has a little accent feldspar crystal on the side. It's not a world-beating elbaite as elbaite, but it's from the Gillette Quarry. I taught a little mineralogy class once in Conn College in New London, Connecticut, and I led them for their field trip out to the dumps of the Gillette Quarry. It's a very pleasant place to dig. It's right by the river, so if you get sweaty, you stick your head in the river. I found a few nice things there, but that one I traded from the Yale collection. I also wrote a piece for the record on the Yale Peabody collection, which is a rather sad story I won't get into, but I volunteered for a summer correcting the German locality labels in that collection. And then I gave him some things, and I wheedled, and I pried that one loose. And it's sort of, that was right before I moved to Tucson, so that's kind of a souvenir of my time in Connecticut mineralogically, especially since I've been to the locality.
Wow, this is great.
Now it's time for a little German experience. That's an acanthite, used to be called argentite. Now they're known as paramorphs of acanthite after argentite. Argentite is isometric silver sulfide. Acanthite is orthorhombic, or is it monoclinic? It's one of those silver sulfide. And even when they have obvious isometric symmetry, it means they were formed as argentite but spontaneously reverted to acanthite inwardly. So that's the science lesson. Now look how pretty it is. Freiburg is, of course, a classic locality for this and many other silver minerals. And some of the really old ones are pretty amazing. They've been mining at Freiburg for more than 500 years. I shouldn't put it in the present tense because it's pretty much over now. It ended in the 1960s. But the Himmelsfürst mine, what was known for very fine native silver, argentite, stephanite, myergerite, etc., the silver minerals. That one is unusually sharp for the German locality. It looks like a Mexican specimen. They get that good from Mexico, looking much like that. But I do have an old label. I traded that from a dealer, not in Germany, but at the Tucson show a few years ago. And it was the Freiburg acanthite of my dreams. It's a little small, but I can't think of anything else bad to say about it. We have been to Freiburg, by the way, right after the wall fell down, when no cleanup, as it were, had taken place yet, and it was dirty and it was smelly. The air smelled like lighter fluid. There were no hotel accommodations. They weren't used to seeing anybody who wasn't from East Germany, you know. And they didn't know how to take care of tourists. We had to go quite a ways around the town before we found a pension who would have us, you know, man, wife, and 2 little kids. But we could speak German with them, and we were a novelty, so it turned out all right. And they gave me directions to the Berg Academy collection in the morning, where I ogled all the old German classics. And that's what that one reminds me of, although I didn't get it on that trip. Yes, there's no particular personal story associated with the Congo Carolite. In fact, these are still fairly plentiful on the market today. I just noted around the Tucson show just now, but they exceed by about 8 orders of magnitude any Carolites from any other locality before it. They first came out, I think about 4 or 5 years ago. Mostly brought in by the French dealers, the Gobon brothers, Brice and Christophe Gobon. And I just got a very good deal from them on that one. And for its size, I don't think I've seen a better one. The faces are brightly lustrous, as you see, and if you look closely at them, when you wait for the burnout to go away as it turns, you see little concentric boxes. Growth features on most of the faces that are just razor sharp on that one and clear. Of course, usually they're incomplete crystals. That one is complete, and it even rests on a little coating of smaller carolites. It's just an outstanding example of what it is, and it's a recent find, really, only a few years old. But the Gobons tell me they're diminishing now. There probably won't be any more of them in another few years. Of that caliber, anyway. Oh, yeah, this was one of my big coups at the Tucson show in the early 90s when the Russians started appearing. You know, there was nothing out of Russia for the whole Soviet era. There were many things out of Russia before 1917, the Bolshevik Revolution. And since 1990, when the Soviet Union collapsed, we've seen many Russian things on the market. That period in between is a blank. And I was living in Connecticut at the time, and Wendell was just bringing me out to do the show reports on Tucson and Denver. So I had a week to do Tucson. We fly back to usually to a blizzard in Connecticut. And the Russians were filling their rooms with amazing assortments of miscellaneous things, from utter junk to things like that. And most of them weren't labeled. They weren't priced. The dealers didn't know what they were. It's like they'd taken a sack of rocks and thrown them on a table in a hotel room. This, of course, was a challenge. So I would get down and microscopically look at all the little pieces of crap, which is what most of them were. And I did that in one room, and I saw that, which was the blue Russian topaz of my dreams. That's from the old locality, the gem pegmatites of the Urals near the village of Morsinka. Also near the emerald mines, where the Russian emeralds came from long ago. There was no label on that. I have no idea whether it's a pre-1917 specimen or whether it was hidden away during the Soviet, collected and hidden away during the Soviet era, or whether it's really new. I have no idea. There's no documentation. I wish there were. But it's got a beautiful pale blue color. It's complete, it's gemmy, it's lustrous, etc. There's a little bit of feldspar on the side, and it's just a very fine blue Russian topaz. So I looked up at the surly Russian dealer who was watching me, and I said, "How much do you want for this?" And I thought he was going to say $700 or something that I couldn't afford. And instead he said $70. And I had the feeling he just made the figure up. You know, it was a random price. And it took me about a millisecond to accept that price. And there's a blue Russian topaz, which I wish I knew more about historically. This was for my very first trip to the Munich show, which of course is number 2 after Tucson in the world. And it's the Tucson of Europe, you can think of it. When I got that, it was the mid-'80s, and I was living with my family in Augsburg, which is near Munich. It was only about an hour's drive down to the Theresienwiese in the middle of Munich, where the show was then held. It's moved since to a much less attractive place, I think. But I had very little money as usual, and just some dealer, I don't even remember who it was, had this French Bournonite, for which he wanted 100 marks. 100 marks then was only about $35. So that is, to put it mildly, a bargain. That's an exquisite Bournonite, I think, with very high luster, nice complexity of cogwheel development, which is typical of the species. The very finest are the old ones from Cornwall, and now some fine ones from China. But that one's from a coal mine, believe it or not, in Isère, France, southeastern France, a coal mine with hydrothermal metallic mineralization and vugs with gorgeous bournonites and tetrahedrites and sphalerite. And, you know, that one just sang to me from several meters away, especially when I found out it was only 100 marks, and that wasn't a lot of money then. So it was my first coup at my first Munich show. I've been to most of the Munich shows since, even after coming back to the States, because I go now to cover them for the record. But that's from the good old days. And that's my best Bournonite by far.
One of my favorites.
Now, just to show that I'm not allergic to gem crystals, I love the grossulars, the orange grossulars from the Jeffrey asbestos mine in Quebec. Not too many miles north of the Maine-New Hampshire border. It's a dead locality now too, died a few years ago finally. But they've always been good to collectors, and they let them dig on the dumps. And the grossulars from there are just better than any garnets from anywhere that I can think of when they're gemmy like that one. There's no special story with that. I just found it at a ridiculously low price at a dealer's stand at the Denver show one year. And it was even a price I could afford. So there it is, and I'll probably never improve it. I know of a couple that are marginally better, but that one has total gemminess, nice luster. It's a dodecahedron with a lot of little secondary faces around the edges of each rhombic face. And it's just a fine example of a gem grossular from the place that produced them the best, I think.
My last one.
Oh yeah, this is a German exotica. The mineral is strengite, which is very rare, although it's pretty chemically simple. It's a simple phosphate, and it occurs in phosphate-rich pegmatites in several places. But strengite, for most places, doesn't look like much. It makes fuzzy little pale purple balls of tiny, tiny little hair-like crystals. Pleistein in Bavaria is just about the only place that I know of that produced significant strangite specimens where the strangite are single, sharp, gemmy, glassy, lustrous purple crystals, like those that's coming around right now. Those are the best strangite crystals ever found in the world. I mean, not that particular specimen, but that occurrence. And they were found in 1960 when, according to my references, a boulder detached itself from this outcrop of phosphate pegmatite above the little village of Pleistein. And the boulder crashed down the hillside and destroyed a couple sheds and ran into the back of the town movie theater and caused a panic, and everybody ran out in the street. But then it had funny colors in it, this boulder. So the local mineralogists, and Germans are very good about this. This is very near the more famous Hagendorf phosphate locality, which micromounters especially love. They converged on this boulder, found open seams in it with these amazing strangite crystals, and also world record crystals of phosphosiderite, another rare phosphate. So, I mean, that's as good as strangite ever gets from the only place where it ever got that good, in one boulder 50 years ago.
Love it. Love it. So Tom, when I came here today, I was expecting to see a collection that was highly precise, which yours was, but you talked a lot about nostalgia and sentiment and how you choose specimens and how you appreciate the specimen. So that was a side of you that was new to me.
Well, I think most collectors are like that to one degree or another, if they've collected a while. You know, you have favorites because they're associated, well, it's twofold to me. Both episodes of my personal life, as in many of those cases, but also with historically interesting mines and mining districts. I don't think I'm particularly unusual that way. At least I hope not, because the past is real. As Faulkner said, the past is never past. It never dead. It's not even past. It's always here.
I can appreciate it. You know, a lot of collectors, they put some emphasis either on aesthetics or maybe the science, and you have that mixture also appreciating the history and the feelings and memories that these specimens evoke. It's really nice to see that. I share that. So it's nice to see. Your collection is definitely a reflection of your personality, your life experience,
All right.
that accumulation.
I'll go for
Fair
that.
enough?
Yeah.
Thanks,
All
Tom,
good
so
collections
much.
reflect their owner's personality. All right, thanks, Chip.
Take care.
Yep.
Hi, I'm Jim Houran on the road at the 2011 Denver Gem and Minerals Show, and I'm very glad to actually have a chance to stop and talk with a man who's well known in the mineral collecting community around the world, Alan Young. Alan is someone that usually when you see him in a show, he's a man on a mission. That's because he's very active in growing the hobby in many different ways that maybe you're not even aware of. For example, Alan, let's go over some of your accomplishments, because they're quite varied. First, you're on the board of the Mineralogical Record, correct?
Correct. I'm president this year, and I'm a director, have been a director for about 3 years.
And that's entirely a voluntary position?
Correct.
Excellent. And you're also involved with the Friends of Mineralogy?
Right. I'm the president of the National Friends of Mineralogy Group.
And if that's not enough, you also are a competitive exhibitor at times.
At times, right.
And when you're not exhibiting, sometimes you're also a judge, if I understand.
That's right.
So what don't you do in this hobby?
Well, I try to volunteer whenever I can, and I think it's a great hobby, and I just love being involved.
Alan is clearly someone that we can learn from, so I'm eager today to see a selection of minerals that are going to tell a story about you. And in the process, I want to see what sort of lessons that we can learn about collecting philosophy, quality, and other tips that you've picked up throughout those different spheres of experience. So you ready, Alan?
Great.
Let's take a look at the minerals.
All right.
Now, Alan, I'm a collector of gem crystals, as you know, so arsenopyrite is something that I typically wouldn't really look at. But this one I can't take my eyes off of. Where did you find this?
Well, this one is one of two specimens that basically started out my thumbnail collection. The other one is an azurite, which I also still have. Back in the early 1980s, I was collecting, small cabinet, and as my tastes improved and I found that I couldn't afford what I liked, and so I was kind of wondering, what am I going to do about it? And one day I was visiting a dealer up in Reno. I was managing a mine in central Nevada, and I'd make a lot of business trips to Reno, and I'd always stop at Harvey Gordon's shop. And one day I stopped in, and he said, Al, you got to come back and look at these thumbnails in the back. And I just got them. They're from the Bullock collection, and the Bullocks were well-known collectors from North Carolina. They had won numerous awards. And I looked at that, and I looked at the azurite, and I had an epiphany right there. I mean, it was like, that's what I need to do. They were beautiful, they were perfect, and they were affordable. So that's what started my thumbnail collection. So this one is from Hidalgo del Parral in Chihuahua, Mexico.
Now, what struck you initially about this specimen? What grabbed you and said, you have to take this home?
Oh, I'm sorry. The luster, the sharpness of the crystal is just perfect. And the aesthetics of it is a common mineral, but it had a lot of aesthetics, I thought, and very sharp.
Let's talk about aesthetics for a moment, Alan. Did you have to cultivate your eye, or were you born with a gift that you could just tell when something was really good and other people would agree with you?
Well, aesthetics is a subjective thing. Everyone's view of that is different, of course, and mine is mine, and I like stuff that. I like things that other people may not like, and vice versa. So it's a personal thing, and I don't. Yes, I think to some extent you cultivate that. Over a period of time, you get a better understanding of what makes a fine mineral specimen. But it's all in the eyes of the beholder, really.
Does this piece still hold a lot of sentimental value for you?
Yes, it does. I mean, it's just a arsenopyrite, but it was one of the first specimens I acquired. So, and it's still a good specimen. It was in a American Federation winning case, years ago, and yeah, I mean, it's still a great specimen.
I love the sculptural quality. So before we go on, let's put a little not for sale label on it.
Yeah, let's do that. Yeah, in fact, I think every one of these has a not for sale label on it.
Let's not get ahead of ourselves, Alan. Let's just hold on for that.
All right.
Gold, a mineral everyone wants, and right now with the price of gold, I can see why you maybe pulled this one out of the vault to show us.
Well, the price of gold had really nothing to do with it. This was one of the earlier specimens I acquired after I made that jump to thumbnails. One of the things one needs in a great thumbnail collection is a good gold. So I asked Harvey to look for a gold for me, and he came up with this one, and this was a real home run. As golds go today, this is a good gold. Certainly there are better ones, but this one, what I really like about this one, it has a provenance. It came out of the Burridge collection, which most of it ended up in Harvard. The story goes that the Shortman brothers from Massachusetts were hired to move that collection when it was donated to Harvard. And in exchange for that, they got the opportunity to buy a couple specimens out of that collection. Alvin took this one, and then it went to Ron Bentley. So Ron Bentley had it in his collection, and so Harvey got it from Ron Bentley. And it's from El Dorado County in California. There's no mine name with it. And of course, it was probably collected perhaps 100 years ago or more. And he got it from Ron Bentley, and Ron was good enough to write up the whole history of the thing for me. So that's one of the things I really like about it. I'm really big on provenance and the history of some of these things. I know it really doesn't have anything to do with the quality of the specimen, but it sure is an interesting part of the specimen that
Well, this is really lovely.
Went this through, whose hands this specimen went through, and that's very interesting to me.
Now, you said that when you started collecting the thumbnails, you said I had to have a good gold.
Got to have.
What about
a good
now?
gold.
Do serious collectors still need a good gold? Is that a requirement?
Absolutely.
Why is that?
It's just it's one of the holy grails of a good thumbnail collection. Really, you just have to have a good gold.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
All right.
Well, another.
Wow.
Are we going?
Wow. Wow. Oh, I can't wait to hear about this one.
All right. Well,
This
another holy grail.
jaw dropper.
Another holy grail, of course, is Proustite, and I had to have a Proustite. Not only is it another holy grail for a thumbnail collector, but I worked for a silver mining company, and I had a particular interest in silver minerals, so I really wanted one of these. So I asked Harvey to find a Proustite for me, and he came up with this one. It's a very good one. I don't know whose collection it came out of. I don't have the history behind it. But it was a great specimen, I thought, and of course it was expensive, and in order to finance this one, I had a collection of Idorado, self-collected Idorado minerals. I'd worked there for several years, and I decided to sell my Idorado collection in order to finance this specimen.
Oh, so some are for sale. I just have to catch you on the right day.
Well, at that time.
At the time, okay.
And so, at the time, for whatever reason, I thought this was more important than my Idorado collection. Now, my wife said, you're going to be sorry you did this. And it turns out she was right. But I don't have my Idorado collection anymore, but I have this specimen to remind me that wives are always right. And
Good one, and we have that on tape now. Good, that's good.
Yeah.
Now I want to ask you something about this specimen. I mean, it is gorgeous, clearly one of the holy grails. But what would you say to someone that says, why invest a good sum of money on a specimen like this that is photosensitive, it's brittle, it's a fragile piece, when you could invest in something much more durable?
Well, it's just a personal preference. I just had to have one. I just love the color, and the rarity, and it is a competition type mineral. It's a mineral that you would put in competition. It has, it's an eye grabber. The color and the luster and everything. It's just you have to just look beyond those problems and keep it in the dark and only show it occasionally. But it's a mineral to really be appreciated, and I just had to have it.
Fair enough. Tell me about this.
That one I saw in the 1987 Denver show here. A dealer from Butte, Montana had a bunch of those. He had been contracting with the mine, Black Pine Mine in Phillipsburg, to collect these, and this was the best one he had, and he was asking a lot of money for it. And I thought, boy, that's a beautiful specimen, but I just can't do it. And so I got home and I started thinking about it, and I thought, for a Veseliite, you're never going to see a better one for sale. You better jump on that, Al. And I called him up and I made him an offer, and he took it, and he actually drove the specimen down to Boise for me.
How nice!
And hand delivered it. Yeah. So I love this piece. It's just got such good aesthetics. The little bit of malachite there that's with it, and the 3 crystals. This specimen was a winner of the Lindstrom in 2005. But the dealer that I bought it from later told me, he said, that specimen allowed the miners that year to have a really good Christmas party. It was
excellent. Excellent. I mean, that thing looks perfect 360. Totally.
Yeah, it's a nice piece. I'd consider that probably my best specimen, I would say, for what it is.
Wow, copper. Again, this is something that doesn't fit into my collecting scheme, but I certainly can appreciate it. And this one is much different than I've seen in other collections.
Yeah, of course, it's from Keweenaw. This one I acquired just a few years ago at Tucson, and I like it. You can still see there's a number written on it, and it turns out this specimen and another one that I also have, the twin to it, or not really a twin, but a companion to it. They're both pictured in a 1902 New York State Museum publication.
Get out.
Yes, and so I thought, well, that's cool. And, this is sort of one of those provenance kind of acquisitions. I mean, it's not like I needed another copper. I only got 50 or 60 coppers in my collection, but I'm a sucker for Keweenaw coppers, and I, anytime I see a good sharp one, I like to pick it up. So.
No, it's just very different. It looks like a piece of industrial art. Mm-hmm. Very sculptural.
It's very sharp, yeah. It's just a sharp cube. I bought the specimens from Wayne Light, and he told me about that, and so I went out and searched for that publication, was able to find it, and got a copy of it. It's one of the things I enjoy when I have people over. I said, see this, and you see this copper specimen, see this copper specimen, and I open the book, and it's 1902. It's been around a while, and
it's
wow,
like CSI Minerals.
Yeah,
I love it.
exactly.
I love it.
So.
Now, Alan, this is a piece I personally have admired. I like rhodonite, but to get a real fine one from the United States, that's a head scratcher.
It is a hard one. It is a hard one to get in sharp crystals. This one came to me a couple of years ago at our Northwest Friends of Mineralogy Symposium, and one of our members had acquired a collection of thumbnails from I believe this person was a teacher of his. It came out of a Father Hufnagel, who was a chemistry teacher in New York City back in the 40s. And he collected thumbnails primarily, and would make trips to Franklin a lot, and that's probably where he got this one. He also acquired specimens from Ward's and the Shortmans as well. One of the other 2 specimens I acquired in this was a Gratonite and also a wolfenite a red cloud wolfenite that I think probably was an Ed Over piece. But anyway, this piece is it's complete all the way around and fairly sharp. For a thumbnail rhodonite from Franklin, it's pretty good.
Is that a complete floater?
No, no, it isn't. It's at the bottom. It's contacted, but
We can't have everything.
can't have everything.
everything.
That's right.
Right.
And it was almost too big. As you notice, I had to mount it.
Well, let's
sort of-
talk about that for a second, because again, as a competition judge, you're also making sure people follow the rules. What is your personal rule when it comes to thumbnails? Do you define it in terms of strict competition, 1 inch all the way around, or are you thinking, no, something that can fit just within a Perky box, which is a bit bigger, is fine?
Yeah, I'm kind. Well, being an engineer, I'm sort of picky that way, and I go with the 1 inch cube, and it has to fit in the 1 inch cube. Now, Perky box is a little bigger, and the reason I think Perky designed them that way is so that the specimens wouldn't rub against the sides of the box. I mean, it just makes sense. There'd be some clearance there. So I stick with that. It's just my thing. And
But even though you had to orient it in a slanted way to fit, it really is aesthetic the way you have it displayed.
yeah, it looks good. Yeah.
That's
It's a
a
hard
cool
mineral
piece.
to find in a thumbnail from the U.S.
Yeah, what do you?
It's difficult.
That's very cool. Very cool. Now, this exquisite piece is one that, to experienced viewers, they're going to recognize.
Correct. This specimen is from Val d'Ala, Torino province in Italy. It was a specimen that was once in the Manette collection. Jim and Don, both friends of mine, were friends of mine, and this was the year that Garnet was the theme of the Tucson show. This was the thumbnail entry that won. Now, when the Manette collection went on sale a few years back, I picked this up, and they had it mounted differently. They had it mounted kind of upside down, and I thought this one actually this way showed off the faces a little better. So I clipped a little bit of the contacted matrix off and just turned it upside down, and I think it actually looks a lot better this way. It's a beautiful piece. Just the faces and the color and the luster and then a little bit of diopside with it.
Yeah, these elongated groshulars, very sought after. I've never seen a better matrix piece.
Thank you.
That's a stunner. Stunner.
The next one is a fluorite from Chamonix, France. This one, they found these years ago in an ice-filled pocket in the Alps, and this was one of the better thumbnails. I think Ralph Clark got another one that was exquisite. So this one went to Jim Manette, and again, this one I got out of the Manette collection when it went on sale. I've always wanted one of these. I just love the color, and the. I think a pink fluorite is another one of those holy grails that you have to have in a good thumbnail collection. So I was really pleased to get it.
It's classic, right? It's a classic
Right.
type
Right,
of
it is
association.
absolutely a classic mineral.
Now, some of your minerals, I've noticed their associations are on matrix, other ones are loose. Do you have any sort of rationale, or do you just choose what just looks good?
Well, I choose what looks good, but I mean, obviously, everything else being equal, you like to have some matrix. That's always better. But sometimes it's just not possible. Sometimes you have to balance the pros and cons of the specimen. Sometimes they don't have matrix, but they just don't come that way. So it just varies.
Well, luckily this one does. Yeah, that's
Little bit of
exquisite.
smoky.
A little bit of smoky, props it up on a pedestal.
Right.
Yeah, and again, it's a 360 piece. Is that important to you, by the way?
No, not really. No, I'm really looking at it from the standpoint, how does it show, or how does it display? I mean, clearly, if it's 360, that's better, but that's not always. If the aesthetics of the piece are such that you can look, you can look beyond that, and that doesn't really have an effect to me. For instance, the previous piece, the grossular, obviously that's not 360. That's meant to be looked at from one direction. So it just varies.
So, Alan, is it true you can't have too many golds?
No, you can't have too many golds. You can't have too many coppers. You can't have too many acanthites. I don't know what else. This is a round mountain gold here. You know what I like about these? They're all a little different. They all have their own character. This one was pictured in the article on the locality, on the Round Mountain locality, and it was my photograph, which I'm kind of proud of because it was the first time any photograph of mine has ever made it into the Mint record.
Oh, congratulations!
So, yeah, I was pleased with that. But besides that, it's a great specimen, really sharp, and it's got some great great twinning and just a lovely piece.
Very three-dimensional.
Yes, it is.
No, this is lovely. Absolutely lovely. And now we need to add photography to your list of accomplishments.
No,
we missed that
fun.
at the beginning.
Yeah, the problem is I took on that idea of photographing my specimens, and it was only going to be just the best ones, and then that kind of morphed into, well, maybe I'll just do all of them, and so I'm up to 600 some now, and I've got probably another 800 to go.
Oh my!
And so I've got enough work to keep me busy if I ever retire. But it's a lot of work photographing these, and I enjoy it, but it's just finding the time.
Ooh, this is a sweet looking thing. Sweet.
It's one of my favorites. When Collector's Edge went into the Sweet Home Mine, I wanted a thumbnail, a really good thumbnail from there. And I was watching for them and never really did see one that just did it for me. And one day I was in Denver and walked into their shop and saw this specimen that had a couple nice crystals on tetrahedrite. It was just perfect, except that it was not a thumbnail. It was a small cabinet actually, and so I had to take the risk of having it trimmed. And it turned out they did a marvelous job there at Collector's Edge in trimming it. It's just perfect, and really happy with this piece. There's a little quartz sticking up through the one crystal, and it's just I just love it looks like under lights. It looks like brake lights on a car. I mean, it's just.
Oh, this is stunning. You don't need explanation. You just show it. You just show this piece.
Everybody knows what that is.
So it's only appropriate that I said sweet at the beginning. You know what I'm saying? That's where it comes from, the Sweet Home Mine. That's oh, beautiful, beautiful. I've seen pictures of this acanthite online.
Oh, have you? Well, it was
And
in
Mindat.
Mindat. Yeah,
On
I put it on Mindat. Yeah.
But to see it in rotating in 360, this is a really unusual but beautiful piece.
I was in Dave Bunk's shop one day, and he showed me this, and I thought it was the best acanthite from Fresnillo that I had ever seen. Certainly one of the best, and unfortunately, another silver collector, Terry Wallace, had first dibs on it. So I had to trade out another silver mineral for this. It gave him, I sold it to him and was able to get to be the first on this one, and was able to acquire it that way. And sometimes you got to do what you got to do. But this is a great example. Really an elongated crystal and very sharp and lustrous.
I've never seen anything like this. So I have to ask you, when you have that little sting of giving something good to getting something good, do you get over that? You still miss the piece you gave away?
I still miss it.
You still?
Yeah, I don't. I haven't gotten rid of very many specimens over the last few years because I always find that I regret it later on. But anyway, I got a really nice specimen though. I'm really happy with this piece. So.
Yeah, you were lucky to get it.
Yeah. Not really seen one like it.
No, I've never seen anything like this at all.
When I posted it on Mindat, I got a message that's not an acanthite, that's a stephanite. No, that's an acanthite.
But thanks.
Yeah.
Even though it hurt when you thought you weren't going to get this piece, did it make you feel good to know that, you know what, my taste must be improving because someone else that I maybe admire liked it too?
Yeah, certainly. Well, for a silver mineral collector, Terry Wallace is certainly one right at the top, and he liked this. The other piece that was a petsite on gold, and certainly more rare, but it was a great specimen, and I didn't appreciate it as much as he did. So I went to a happy home, and everybody went home happy after this. So it was a good deal.
You want to make an appeal to Terry to get that specimen back?
It's not going to happen.
It's not going to happen. Okay. Hey, what do we see here?
Well, this is a very common mineral on another common mineral. It's a calcite on Fluorite, and it's just one of those pieces that I acquired it mainly because of the locality. It's from Shullsburg, Wisconsin. Now,
That's not Idaho.
that isn't Idaho, but that's where I grew up,
Okay, all right.
and that's where I went to school. And so this one has kind of some significance for me. In fact, Shullsburg was in our conference when I was playing sports in high school. So it was I grew up in that area. And the problem is with these, I mean, you never really see a small one. They didn't save the little ones. So this is really unique in that it's perfect. There's no damage, and it's just a nice aesthetic example of a calcite from that locality. And they're really hard to find. And so even though it is a common mineral from that locality, this sort of thing is difficult to find, and I just love it.
Now, do you have a sub-collection of Idaho minerals?
I do. I actually have several sub-collections. I'm an incurable collector, and I have an Idaho suite, and this was kind of one of the specimens that I got because I had just recently moved to Idaho. This was in '87, I believe, or '88. Also, it was a specimen I got here at the Denver show, and it's a Ludlamite from the Blackbird mine near Salmon, Idaho. It was in the Beth Gordon collection. This one, sometimes you're just in the right place at the right time, and that's the case here. During the Denver show, I happened to go to dinner with Cal and Kareth Graber and Tony Jones, and we were sitting around, and at the end of the dinner, Cal asked me, "Would you like to see some? I just acquired a collection. Would you like to see some pieces?" And I said, "Sure." I went over there and I started pulling out specimens. They were all just great thumbnails. She had a great thumbnail collection, and since I just moved to Idaho, I thought, well, this would be a good way to start an Idaho collection. So this is probably my best Ludlamite. I have a number of them.
This is gemmy. I can see into that.
It is.
I can see into this crystal. Gorgeous color. Oh, this is remarkable. Is it contacted on the bottom, or is it complete? Is it like a floater?
No, it's actually a doubly terminated crystal.
Jeez.
And then there's another one. Yeah, Beth Gordon had exquisite taste in minerals.
Well, if they're like that.
I had pulled out so many specimens out of this that I would have had to mortgage my house. I mean, I had to put a whole bunch of that. It was.
That's a sickness we still deal with today.
Yeah,
some of us.
Yeah. One of the great things about mineral collecting is the friends you make, and one of my friends in the community, the collecting community, is Tom Gressman. Tom was a pretty aggressive collector, a thumbnail collector, and I learned a lot from Tom, and actually ended up acquiring some of his specimens over time. One day at the Denver show here a few years ago, Tom and I had heard that there was a stash of Husky Mine polybacites and stephanites that were going to be up for sale at the show. And so we were able to get a little sneak peek of that, and walked into this room, and the dealer was just pricing them and laying them out on the table. And Tom grabbed the only chair that was available, sat down, and kind of did a kind of a offensive lineman's maneuver to keep me out of there and make sure. So he's going through them, and so I'm watching him, and I figured, well, I'll get the second choice, which will be fine. And then the dealer said, "Oh, wait a minute, here's one more," and he handed that to me, and of course that was the best one of the bunch.
Excellent, excellent.
It was sold right on the spot. It's doubly terminated. It's a perfect floater. I don't know where it was attached, and it's got that great purple green iridescence as most of those specimens do. I just love it, and again, kind of an uncommon locality, you might say. Another silver mineral.
No, I like it. I like the fact that it also teaches us that people shouldn't be afraid to go shopping for minerals with Tom Gressman.
We had a lot of fun together. We did. Yeah, we laugh about that every time we talk about it.
So did he end up getting one from the lot?
Yeah.
Did he?
Yeah, we both got a couple.
That's great. Friendly competition.
Yeah.
All right, Al, now you're showing me something that I can relate to. I love this. Love it.
This was I think one of the best thumbnail topazes ever to come off of the Zapot claim, and I, as I mentioned earlier, I as an old friend of Harvey Gordon, and Harvey had this claim, and back in the early 90s he invited me down and to go on a dig with him, and I brought my youngest son, who was probably about 11 at the time, with me, and we got there a little bit earlier than Harvey did, and started digging, and I was digging on a little stringer of Amazonite and pink clay, which is where these things occur in, and had just about worked this chunk of Amazonite out of the rock, and my son was starting to get a little impatient with the whole process, and he was working somewhere else, and so I said, "Come on over here, Colin, and here's my jackknife, and start going through the clay really carefully to see if there's any topaz in there." So he did, and about a minute later he lets out a holler and he says, "Geez, look at this, Dad," and he hands me the crystal just about like that. There wasn't anything we had to do. We washed it off with a canteen, and that's it. That's how it looked when it came out of the pocket. And it's got so many faces. It's kind of a light green color. It's just, I think, a gorgeous piece. And
Can I adopt your son? I mean, this is
yeah,
incredible. This is like a new Crystal Hunters now, Yeah. Blue Cap has the new Crystal Hunters. This is like a story from that entire series.
It's a real gem. It really is. It's got a little bit of schorl on one face on the back corner there.
But it actually adds some nice contrast to it.
Yeah.
It's really nice. It almost has that kind of dendritic look to it.
And I love all those termination faces. It's just
This is so complex.
it's just gemmy, absolute gem.
Wow.
It was
I
the
could
only
just stare
one
at this
quite
thing
like
all
that.
day.
We got one more out of that area, and it wasn't nearly as good as this. But fortunately, it's a thumbnail, so it went in the collection. And
What percentage would you say of your collection is self-collected?
oh, I would say
collected.
field collected. I don't know. I would say 5 to 10%, maybe that many. In that range, maybe 5. But I like to get out. But it's the one thing nice about collecting thumbnails. You have a reasonable good chance of finding something. When you're doing that, and so I like to get out. In fact, I was just out last weekend with my son, same one, and his wife and our granddaughter. So
Okay. Any luck?
We did. We found some Ilvites up on South Mountain where the Ilvite locality is. But,
Excellent.
yeah.
Well, this is inspiring, actually. I've never field collected, but this inspires you. I can find that. I want to go.
That's one of the best things I found. The other one, I found a gold specimen one time, about 3 ounces of wire gold, and on a dump about 30 miles from Boise. But,
You kidding?
Yeah, that was another pretty good one. But I don't get out as much as I'd like to, but it's every once in a while you get lucky.
Oh, yeah. You get to stare at this all day. That's phenomenal. Phenomenal.
Well, here's another topaz. This one was also in the Bullock collection. I got this a few years ago here in Denver, and it's a beautiful blue topaz from the Ural Mountains. And as a topaz from that locality, it's very good. Obviously, it was in a Bullock collection. It was a competition thumbnail. But what I really like about this one again is the provenance. This one has a Smithsonian label that went with it, and it says it was in the Roebling collection, Washington Roebling collection. Washington Roebling was a mineral collector, and he was an engineer, and he was the fellow that supervised the building of the Brooklyn Bridge, along with that label, there's a handwritten label from him for this specimen.
You're killing me.
You just kind of feel, being an engineer myself, you sort of feel this connection, when you have that in your hands, and that's one of the things I really love about this piece is sort of its provenance. It'd be a great piece without that, but that just sort of is icing on the cake. This is an aquamarine from the Sawtooth Mountains, Boise County, Idaho. This is one of those that was labeled Centerville, Idaho, and I guess it still remains a mystery as to really where it was from, but I'm labeling this as Sawtooth for now. It is unique in that, or the specimens from this particular find are easily recognizable because of the termination of the aquamarine crystal. Most of these sawtooth pieces I have just a flat termination. This one has a beveled termination, and also the glassiness and the color as well. And again, this is an Idaho specimen. You know, most people can't believe that
No.
aquamarine like that can come from Idaho.
It's unreal.
But Idaho has a number of aquamarine localities. Unfortunately, some of them are the locality is lost. I've seen specimens of aqua just that color or better from around Pierce, Idaho, and we don't really know where exactly they came from up there. But there's several Idaho aquamarine localities. But I love this one. Part of my Idaho suite. Just it's hard to imagine a better single crystal.
And this just goes to show that a lot of fabulous things are found right here in the U.S. You don't have to go to exotic localities like Afghanistan or Pakistan. You can get something that rivals anything from there right here at home.
Right. Yeah. It's really surprising, you know, what there is out there.
Oh.
The thing about Idaho is it was the last state that was really explored, and by in the early 1800s, and there's still a lot of the state that's really hard to get to. There's a lot of localities that that still are out there to be discovered. For instance, I've seen rutilated quartz crystals from Idaho, and where they came from exactly, nobody knows, but they look like Brazilian. It's just some really intriguing, but the country in the central part of the state is so rugged that, it's really difficult to, and of course it's all forested, so it's really difficult to find outcrops and so on. But, yeah, this is this one's kind of a mystery, really. The person that collected these is no longer with us, so, whether it's Centerville, Idaho, or whether it's the Sawtooths, there's people on both sides of that opinion. But
we know it's Idaho.
we know it's Idaho,
And we know that sometimes
And
mysteries are fun.
Right. All of these from Idaho have that same termination and same glassiness. You can tell one of those pieces.
Stunning.
Yeah.
Stunning. Alan, thank you so much. This was phenomenal. I learned an awful lot. I saw great pieces, things that are, I'm sorry, I'm still drooling. It's incredible. I can see why you're a man on a mission. You are someone that's a phenomenal role model. Alan just shows you the ways that we can contribute to our hobby overall, some that are visible and some that aren't. But it looks like you get satisfaction from it all.
I really enjoy it. It's it's a hobby that I've had my whole life practically. So I love it.
And we appreciate what you've done. Now let's get out to the show and find some more to add.
All right, let's do it.